Guys, we are live again. It is Sunday night, and welcome to Landscaping to the Point. So, I'm your host, Scott from Landscapes by Acme. We have JC and Josh underneath us. Everybody's doing okay, I hope, and we're having a great time here. So, we got some great topic today, and we found the long lost Jonas brother way down at the bottom. He is having fun. Hopefully he's feeling better. He hurt himself. He ran against this dude, I think Conor McGregor, and he beat the shit out of him, broke his ribs. But I guess that's par for the course living in Boston, right,
Bro,
JC?
aren't you a little too old to be getting into bar fights, man?
Yeah, I think he is. I think that's what his problem is. I mean, he's got to watch what he's doing out there. That's what his problem is, right? So we got this great topic today. I kind of threw it by the guys earlier today, and I'm going to explain a little bit about it, and then we're going to get into the topic. And I think we all can touch on it a little bit. Even JC can touch on it. Josh can touch on it. We all can touch on it because it's a very good show. The topic's called "Gotta Catch Them All." It's kind of like about Pokemon, but it's not about Pokemon. So for all you geeks out there, if you're into Pokemon, that's fine because I am. I'm playing now with my son. So the thing is, when you got to catch them all, do you guys feel that you got to catch every job you can or every customer that you can, especially when there's a customer like right next door that you see gets services from another company? Do you feel like you got to catch them and get that customer into your business or not? JC, I know you don't do a lot anymore business-wise, but did you ever feel that way when you ran your business to where you're like, if I could get this guy next door, that business would be mine because he's right there. So it's like that helps you, bring your route closer and densify than it is to be all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Especially when you're starting off, you're fresh, you're new blood into the industry. It's that motivation that wants you to try to get every single customer that you can possible.
Right.
Just to have work, just to have jobs, just to be able to go out there, grind, make some money. It's always the case where you're always wanting to try to build up your business like right away. You want to go off on a running start, which is what I had when my mentality came into it. Obviously keeping into account of what I knew I was capable of and what I knew I was able to handle. But as far as like choosing that clientele that you think would fit, your route or your services better, that's definitely something that you consider. You want to go out there, making those business cards, your door hangers, gaining business from word of mouth, telling your family you're starting up this business, and seeing if they have friends or acquaintances that maybe could utilize your services. But then I know it's one of those things too that you end up getting those customers, or you try to get as many customers as you want. But then there comes a point in time where you have to be selective of you got to be selective of the customers that you have or the customers that you plan on keeping and getting rid of, because you have to assess at certain points to see whether or not the customers that you have or the customers that you think you wanted are going to be beneficial for your business.
Right. I agree with you. I think there's a lot to it. I mean, I feel like you look at certain customers and like I said, you see that they have a service and sometimes you're like, okay, well, I want that customer. And then you get that customer and you know why that other company was probably doing it because they were doing it for cheaper or they were skipping things out that you as your business does differently. So you start to lose out on, well, I had to cut my price just to get them just so I could have two in a row, and you really shouldn't. I mean, you should keep your prices where they're at. And that's why we always talk about how to keep your numbers right and knowing your numbers and all that stuff and knowing your worth. But it's sometimes you're like, okay, I need this customer because I want this route to be so dense and be so close together than to be so far apart. So it's one of those things that it's hard, but I think sometimes you got to say no sometimes, hey, you just got to look at what you can handle and, put your numbers out there and make sure that they're at the right point.
I think there was like an Echo Means Business Live. I forgot who it was that was talking about it. They were trying to get a customer within their same route, and they offered the customer a lower rate than the other neighbors. And then the other neighbors found out, and he ended up lowering the price for them too, just to keep them, because he kind of dug himself a hole.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things you try to get. Sometimes, like, say you might have one guy and the other guy's on the corner, so you're like, okay, it should be higher price for being on the corner, but you're like, well, if I do it for the same as this one, or if I do a little lower because I want to get that customer, then yeah, that client next door is gonna find out, because they're gonna talk, they're gonna see that you're cutting both of them and go over to the neighbor and say, hey, I see you're cutting, getting cut by the same guy. I'm just wondering, is it the same price as what I am? And then you got to read and negotiate. And I think that in the long run does put you in a big hole. Josh, what do you think about like that, getting customers and all that stuff? I mean, I know you're more getting into more of the mowing now than you were in the past because of the landscaping. But do you always, when you're doing the landscaping in an area or patios, do you try to get customers that are close by?
I mean, ideally, yeah, in the perfect world, that's what you'd like. But, at the same time, I'm not going to sacrifice, my profit to try to get something next door. If you have to wheel and deal a little bit, that's fine to have that road density, but it's not usually how it works. Usually, you kind of spread your web out, and, as the years go by, you scale in and you start, densifying that route. And kind of work around that, and where it all kind of takes off. I mean, I think I've only, like, even in the day when we did residential, I think we only had like one or two neighborhoods where we had more than like 2 or 3 houses per neighborhood. And it wasn't really a huge upsell. It was nice because it was there. But I mean, no, I go for my margin. And if I can, have wiggle room in a neighborhood where there's more than one house or one business, then I'll wheel and deal a tiny bit, but still going to make money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you got to just make sure that you got your customers dialed in, and make sure everything's up to where you want to be. And yeah, you want quality over quantity, really. I mean, that's why I kind of look at it. You want the right kind of jobs that you're going to be able to do and do it the right way. Also, I think that's also, it's always hard to get that right customer and to get this, a whole bunch in one neighborhood. I used to be at one point where we do a big subdivision, and we used to try to get as many clients in there as we could. And we realized over the last couple of years of doing it that you're not going to get every customer there. They're going to take whoever they want. They're going to find, a friend's going to recommend another company over you or whatever. And it's always hard to do that, but you just take what you can get and make sure that you're doing it the right way and giving them the right pricing. And that, that's what you can do. Eventually some people will see your work. There's always people that are, we always get stopped all the time doing a job down the street from another client, and we'll end up being in that neighborhood for a couple of weeks because we're doing a couple prunings, or we're doing, an irrigation system, or we're doing some plantings, and people see that and they want to work with somebody that's going to be in that area quicker than that's not going to be there for, months or so. So sometimes that's always a good thing.
Yeah. One thing too is, as much as you want a customer, what they're asking for services may not be something that you're able to provide. And you might have to face a choice whether or not you want to try to tackle that task, even though you might not have a lot of experience or skill in doing so. On another aspect of that is, like, when you do learn a new skill for your business and you want to start offering those services, and it could be your very first customer that you're doing these new services for. So, or, you try to get a customer and you failed because they wanted something that you weren't able to offer. And that might have motivated you to try to learn something else so that you could start including those services in your businesses as well too. So my question is this, is there ever a customer that you work for, or you do services for, that also has a different company come in and do other services for them. And potentially that could be something that you could do. Now you find yourself in a predicament whether or not you want to offer those services as well and maybe take away that business from somebody else.
Yeah, there's always customers. There's plenty of customers in our area that have other customers, like clients that have companies come in and do, their mulch, or their fertilization, their irrigation. I think the best thing is to just offer your services and let them know your services and how long you've been doing it. Like our company, we're certified to do irrigation. We're licensed and certified also to do landscaping, irrigation. There's a whole bunch of different services we're licensed to do. So we'll offer to a customer if it's not something that we do, but we're not going to keep hounding the customer like some other companies that do, let's say, oh, well, we just strictly do fertilization. So they're hounding you nonstop. We want to be able to provide our services, a good quality product to that customer. If we're going to give them the fertilization, if we're going to do irrigation, we're going to give them the great product that, is out there for that, or the mulch or the plants. We don't want to take the time and just back up and say, okay, well, we want to be able to be here for you for everything. So if you can take us for everything, we'll lower our prices on this, we'll lower our price on that. No, we're going to give you what the cost is for that job. And if they want to go with, the other company that they've been working with, that's fine. We want them to know that we're there. It's really funny because I have one client that they're older, they're in their 80s, and they've had us for mowing for years. They love how we mow. They have, a company comes in and fertilizes them. And every spring when he comes, go out there and see him the first time, he's always like, I just want to let you know, I still have them guys ferting, but if I ever do change, I'll let you know. And I said, I understand that. That's fine. It's totally fine. I know you've been with them just as long as us. And I'm not going to force you to say, hey, you got to take us or them. And that's it. You go ahead and keep with what you got. Sometimes you get a good relationship with a company and you want to stay with that relationship and make sure that it's long lasting sometimes. So I understand that. Josh, what about you? Your thoughts on that?
Again, in the day, I had customers that would have various contractors from different, like, an irrigation guy, fertilization guy. I think it comes down to like anything with some people, like the one at all, like that's your niche. Like you're just a sprinkler guy. You're not the lawn guy. You're not the fucking, the fencing guy. You know, like we talked before, you have like this portfolio of like, I'm a handyman, a landscaper, and all this crap. Some guys like to go to the specific specialist for that stuff. It's like you break your car down, right? You go to your regular mechanic. If it's a transmission issue, you want to go to a transmission specialist. For me personally, I always try to push the services that we have offered, to try to capitalize on that property. I want to try to get as much as I can out of that property or that business. But I'm not gonna hound people for it. No. The offer's there. They'll know what we do and so on and so forth.
True. I agree with you on that. I mean, I feel like sometimes when you push it down their throats, you're also pushing away potential customers, and I think sometimes, you can tell them that you do these services, but I think hounding them just pushes them away sometimes on letting you go for that extra service. Right. And then, can ruin your relationship and ruin, the business that you're already doing for them. So, I always kind of look at that, be thankful for what you're getting out of a customer sometimes, because, you might not have had that customer in the first place. They went to you for a reason, and that's always a blessing that you got that customer for a service that they want. You can let them know, hey, I do this, I do that. If you need anything else, let us know. So I think that's one of the best things that you can do.
Is too many customers a problem?
I think it depends on how big your company is. There's lots of companies that are solo, and they want to go for as many clients as they can because they want to be able to be busy. And I think you have to be able to know when to say that's enough customers. We used to be a company that pushed to get more and more customers. And at one point we were over 150 a week mowing and trying to run 2 crews nonstop. And I feel like Now that I've scaled back to where we're only doing like 45 a week, I feel like that's perfect because there's times that if it rains, I'm not rushing to, hey, I got to hurry up and get this job done, or I got to work till 8, 9 o'clock at night to make sure that it's done after, working 14 hours, because I got something going on Saturday or I got something going on Sunday. I like that I'm at a perfect position where we have is just enough for us. And I think a lot of people push to get that lots of customers to say, okay, I got all these customers and I handle them all myself. Were you happy where you were at when you as many customers as you had, JC?
Yes and no. Because I kind of, the way I look at what I did, it was almost a failure. I wouldn't say almost, because there was some things that I accomplished that I was happy with, but I think doing it on a part-time basis, a lot in time for your personal life, and then working full-time, there was a lot more that I could have done. But it came with its plus and minuses. But I could have done more. I think I could have been more efficient with my time. Maybe planning my routes a little easier. Maybe being a little more motivated at certain times to get other customers that would be more beneficial within my area. But it was live and learn type of situation. But there's always more that you could do. And to say if I was happy or not, I was happy with it because I got jobs, and I was able to kind of focus on the quality of my work as opposed to trying to rush through and then do more than I was able to bite, more than I was able to chew.
Right.
But I think looking back, if I were to kind of do it again, I'd do it a lot differently. It was new to me. I was kind of just jumping into it, and I think I've learned a lot. Like Josh says, you learn from your mistakes. I think knowing now, being a little more mature in the business, I think I'd go about it a little differently. There's some things I do the same, but I just have a different game plan.
Right. What has there ever been? Either of you guys ever had a customer that you really wanted? Being that you were near them and you knew they had services, but then it turned out to be a bad customer in the long run, and you ended up dropping them.
For me, there was a few customers that I wanted to get that I wasn't able to do so, but they definitely needed the services. Whether or not they wanted me to hire them, I tried to reach out to some of them and whatnot. It would have been perfect,
right?
But you never know. Yeah, I could definitely see though that it's like honeymoon phase. Everything's great, and then next thing you know, you just realize what you got yourself into when it comes to that customer. And sometimes you have to let those customers go. And we talked about that before, when to cut your losses. But I'm sure that happens. I'm sure Josh has been through a lot of those situations more than I have.
Oh, I think so. I think Josh has. I mean, Josh, you want to jump on this a little bit, or?
I like years ago, I want to say my third or fourth year in business. I got something that I always want. I got a really good commercial portfolio of two businesses in the property owner's home, which is in a very affluent, McMansion neighborhood. Great payout, great everything. Probably caused the most anxiety I've ever dealt with in my business. In my head, I romanticized the idea that I would have, these commercial portfolios and, this guy's house that would lead to all this other crap. And it was nothing but bitchiness and douchery and all sorts of crap. And, it caused a lot of fucking stress. It was good money, but it was I was married to this customer, and it was ridiculous for its landscape, Right. And again, I'm not trying to down what we do, but there's no such thing as a landscape emergency. So when someone's ringing my phone at 11 o'clock at the night for something, it's driving me fucking nuts. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's customers that I do want. There's properties I see that I want to go after, but I'm also careful. I look at who's in there now, why that contractor's in there. If that contract is doing a shot, I don't always look at like properties and say, oh, I could do better than that, because again, you don't know what the scope of work is. You know, we have a couple of properties we take care of for nationals that probably don't look up to par to most of our properties, because we only do what's in the scope of work of what we get paid for. Anything that's outside of the scope of work, we're not going to do. So I don't look at properties and go, oh, I can do a better job than that. I usually go, you know, if that customer was to call me, what are the questions that I'm going to ask looking at their property, why things aren't maintained or whatnot, and every property around them are. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely certain areas that I like and I try to go after, and when they come, they'll come.
Right. Do you ever get a customer that calls you that you know has another service, and do you ask them like what's the reasoning you're looking for a new customer, new client to take over?
I used to, but at the same time, anybody can just say whatever they want. You know,
Right.
Here's the thing. It's like, I feel like the ones that are so eager to tell you why they don't like their last contractor, it's like, okay, like, you know, why are you telling me that? Why not just move on and say, hey, yeah, they stop offering the services and so on. Like, it's not really my business. I go in there, I do what I got to do. I think I think it comes down to the maturity factor of business. Where like I used to ask these questions. I know a lot of like the gurus will tell you to vet the customers and ask, but again, you don't know. You know, that's like a chick telling you, you know, my last boyfriend cheated on me, did all this, and she was the one that was fucking around and doing whatnot. You never know. You know, you take it with a grain of salt. So
Right.
you ask your questions, but who knows? You know, I can sit here and tell you I'm a millionaire and I got a fleet of 100 loaders and 30 trucks, and I don't. You know, but you might believe me.
Right. Yeah, I think it's funny sometimes when they tell you certain things and say, "Well, I'm looking for somebody because you know the other company didn't do this or they didn't do that," and you know sometimes it's not the true case. You know, you find out from the other company what happened, and you know that's where it kind of bites you in the butt sometimes. So I think you gotta, if you really want to be able to bid on it, go for it and bid on it. You know, and like you said, put in the scope of work of what you're going to do for them, and see what they have in mind of what they want to get done. I think that's one of the main things. I know there's one commercial place next to ours that like a lot of stuff isn't done that we do. And you kind of look at it and you're like, well, that could be done differently or this can be done. But then when you actually talk to the company that's doing it, they're like, well, they didn't have us do that. They're not letting us do this or not, you know, and that's so you kind of go back and say, well, now I see why it looks like that. So you kind of got to step back sometimes and just, you know, say, well, if they call me, they call me. If not, you know, I'm not worried about it. So
I got a good friend of mine, Dave Consoli at Pleasant Valley Lawn and Landscape in Methuen, Mass. And he's been doing this since 1984, you know. And he explained to me, because they said that one time, because he's like, why don't you go after some of the neighbors in the neighborhood, the clients? And I said, you know, like, nah, like the places look like shit. I drop customers that don't want to have me trim the bushes. He should just fucking stop for a second. Stop. He said, I used to have that same mentality where it's like the ego gets the best of you. And you're like, if that house doesn't look up to the 10s and keeping up with the Joneses and whatnot, like, I don't want it. I don't want my name on that. He goes, and then I realized, what do I give a fuck if they don't want to spend the money if they have another guy? As long as he's getting that $60 a week to show up and cut the grass, and he does what he says he's going to do. He's like, I've had houses that I've cut for 15 years that I've never trimmed the bushes. You know, the husband or the sons of wives or whatever do it themselves. They have another company that might be gardeners. I had one house that I did everything there except for the planting. They had the plantings put in 5 years prior. It was all redeveloped, like a residential home. And this woman had a person. It was a sole operator, a woman that went around, and she did all the botany and all the planting and pruning and stuff for her. We never touched it. We would call them for the mulch after it was done. So I mean, sometimes you take your money and run with it. If it's a good paying customer, they don't complain. It's an easy property. Take the money and run for what you're doing. Don't complain too much.
Right, I agree with that. I mean, I think that's, you know, do what you can. I mean, it's more about if you get the customer, then you stick with that customer as long as you can. If you know, you're doing it, make sure you just keep doing 100%. So I think that's what you got to do. JC, your thoughts?
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's like you always kind of envision like a picturesque type of client that, you know, your work is going to be reflected based off the appearance of their properties. But yeah, I mean, think about it. Just keep it simple. You know, you're there to get an income, to make money, get a check. You know, get paid. Um, you know, it may not be the nicest property, it might not be the one that stands out, might not be something that you want to take a picture and put in your portfolio, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, it's constant work, consistent work, I should say. And it's, you know, it is what it is, you know. And then on the other hand, you might be intimidated by a property that looks very, very nice, that maybe you focus a little more attention on naturally, because you're afraid that, you know, if you screw up, it's not gonna it's not gonna be a good reflection on you. But that could be kind of counterintuitive when it comes to that, you know, as far as like having that pressure of making sure your work is equivalent and staying consistent with the way that the property is managed. And that's where you're probably going to find more of those particular customers that are pains in the asses, that if something goes wrong and they're going to be giving you that call at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. I mean, I don't expect a call from any of my customers at 11 o'clock unless it's snow removal or something like that. But I mean, it's one of those things like JC and Josh both said, is that, you know, you got to take what you can. And, you know, sometimes there is no landscape emergency at 11 o'clock at night. If you got somebody calling you at 11 o'clock at night and said, oh, the grass is, you know, 2 inches taller than it was the other week, and, you know, what, did you cut it or not? Like, I don't think that's the customer you really want, you know, if that's the case. You know, I've had customers before where they've, you know, they'll love you 1 second you're there, and then the next week you get back and they're like, hey, you did a shitty job. Why did you do a shitty job? You know, and you got to say, wait a minute, what happened here that I did a shitty job? So you got to kind of figure it out. Like, if there is an issue, to try to figure it out right away and solve it. I tell my customers every year, like, if there's anything wrong, let me know ASAP. If they're, you know, if we're shooting up against your house and you don't like it, or we forget to blow it off, let us know so I can fix this issue right away. So I think that's one of the main things that needs to be done. Have you had any of them customers like that that'll call you up and complain about little stuff that shouldn't be an issue?
I mean, I had this one customer that it was when I first started. They would have a lot of trees in their property, and like, if it was 1 or 2 sticks, you know, I'd pick them up myself, but their trees were so dry that it would just branches everywhere. I'm talking everywhere. And I couldn't mow the lawn unless they were picked up. Now, he didn't want to pay for me to pick up the trees and the limbs and stuff like that. So I didn't do his property, you know, and it's like, and they have high expectations for you. It was kind of a pain in the ass, and I kind of cut my ties on that one, just because it was kind of, he wanted more services for nothing, you know, and it's like, it wasn't feasible, you know, for me to do.
Right.
You know, he was never satisfied. So even if I did do that, you know, he'd complain about something else. So I'm just like, I'm all set. You know?
Right. I think you get those customers, and sometimes, yeah, you have to say, I'm done. We have to cut, you know, we're done with this area, or, you know, we just are not working out together, and you know, we're gonna have to split ties. And I think there's always going to be one of those customers that you're going to have. And I hear so many times, and from different guys out in the industry, that they're still cutting that yard that they hate because it's an income. Like Josh said, it's an income that, you know, they're getting every week, and they look at that like, hey, that's $60. I'm cutting the grass, but you're hearing them call nonstop. And if they're calling about stupid crap that could be just easily solved, or the customer just wants to complain about it, sometimes you got to cut the ties.
This is the same guy that questioned why a leaf cleanup was more expensive than a mowing.
That's always the fun one. I think sometimes we get those as landscapers that the customer says, well, why does it cost more for you to do the leaves? You know, well, there's more time involved. There's more things that I have to do for that, you know. a lot of customers don't realize that. They think you just come in and mow the grass and just drive away. And it's not that. Josh could say this. So, Josh, have you had any customers that you would rather just say goodbye and push away?
I have, and I had. The earliest one I can remember was one that I'll call it the firing of her was like similar to like a high school breakup through text message. It was the most awkward thing. I'm not even gonna try to paraphrase it, but it was so fucking awkward, and it felt just like that. And that's how she was as a client. But like this is one of those people where, it was semi nice house, like in a nice part of town. And one of the things we brought up when we brought her on was that she had 3 massive crabapple trees, and we said when those crab apples drop, you're gonna have to clean those up each week, just because we can charge you to clean them up, but we don't have the time to do that each week. We can mow around it, and when you clean it up, we whack around. So they would just let them go, and she didn't understand why we wouldn't just mow over these things and cause trails and tracks, and it became a big thing. And this is one thing that just escalated to another, because once we weren't doing that, we wouldn't pick them up. It turned to, well, there's a few grass clippings that are getting tracked into the pole from when the kids run across the grass. It's like, well, yes, again, like, we don't bag your lawn, we open cut it. It's like you're gonna have a few clippings that went through. So this just went on. It was very awkward. I had a hardscape project that I don't even want to get into it because this crazy bitch is probably watching this shit at some point. I got a statute of limitations on something, and when it's up, I'll talk about it. This was the put it this way: the landscaper I got the job from is still feeding me jobs because he feels bad that I got stuck with it. And this was one of those where she shit talked every single vendor that had worked for her prior to us, and then we kind of realized that she was the issue, and her expectations were either just were too high or she wasn't listening, because she had something negative to say about everybody. We were on a project at her house for 3 months, and she had something negative to say about every contract that was in there, and honestly, every contractor in there did a wonderful job. So, but I've had a few, and I've gotten rid of them, and I'm one that there can be miscommunication amongst parties that when things are kind of just in the flow and go, and maybe you don't get things in writing, but I do practice my due diligence to make sure, like, if I know that there's a misunderstanding and I feel that I'm not getting my point across, I get it through in writing. And then I don't put up with that shit long with anybody, not to sound like that, but it's not worth the time. I'll cut the cord faster than most people and stuff like that.
So do you feel like if you're getting to that issue and you're having some issues like that, do you feel like either getting it in writing right then and there, or getting it by text to her or by email and letting her know what's going on and what needs to be done?
Yeah, like I want them to understand exactly like what the scope of work is, like what you're paying for,
Right.
Like how many people used to think that, like, you would, like a lot of guys would say mowing, blowing, and trimming. Up here in Massachusetts, especially like in the cities, trimming is trimming bushes. Right. So a lot of people would hear that and think that you included trimming the bushes in that cost, when it's weed whacking, mowing, and blowing. So I think the verbiage needs to be there, and people do need to understand. And that's what I'm saying. I get sometimes like when you're in the rush of like the spring rush or the fall rush, you kind of just spark things out, and maybe you're not elaborating. Excuse me. You're not elaborating on what you're trying to say or being specific with the scope of work. So I think putting it in like a text message or an email friendly and explaining what you're doing when you're there, what's the issue that you're seeing, and moving forward with that. We'll usually clean that up. And if it doesn't, then, sometimes people are just a pain in the ass.
Right. Right. I think
there are people out there that are fucking douchebags that want something for nothing. Right. And they make good practice of doing this stuff. Like that's a sad reality.
Right. I agree with you on that one. I mean, I've seen customers that'll just ask you for stuff and expect that it's going to get done for free or really cheap because they want to, you're there and they think they can take advantage of you. And you got to let them know that, that's not part of our service, or, this is going to cost you some extra money and it's going to be this. And like Josh said, try to get it in writing if you can, by an email, text, if you got a system, that you can do a quick estimate, send it to them, get them the sign on it, so that way they understand what's going on. I think that's the best way. Brightstone just put on the thing on Instagram. Thank you guys for listening to us and watching us on Instagram also. Brightstone says that he started jogging today, and I was like, wow, that's great that he started jogging. But he said, I didn't want to, but the ice cream truck doesn't stop. I get what you're running after there, Brightstone. Good one. So I was really proud of you there, Brightstone, but I thought, what the heck, until I read the rest of it. So that's pretty funny. So, but yeah, I think you got to do that in businesses. Just make sure that you get it all in writing as much as you can. What do you guys think? And Josh, I know you've done this, and I've done it in the past. What do you think about working with another subcontractor on a job? And is it easier to work on a job with a subcontractor, knowing that the customer is their customer, their business that they're dealing with?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do a lot of subcontract. I'm a subcontractor myself,
Right.
And I have subcontractors. That's a yes and a no. It really depends on the company. How organized they are, how detailed they are with their contracts. Again, I'm going to emphasize, and the reason why I emphasize this is because this is something that's bit me in my own ass. Is having that scope of work and exactly what you're doing down to the T. Like even drawing stuff in the outer just on like line paper with like the perimeter of the property and where you're working and like a rough scale. It doesn't have to be engineered or anything crazy, but that way like all parties know exactly what you're there for. Because like just like a quick text to a contractor can be misconstrued or misunderstood, taken out of context. And, you want to make sure you have everything just jotted down and everybody is on the same page and you understand. Because it really does depend on the contract you're working for. I've worked for some shitty contractors. I'm still working on getting paid. Doorbell's ringing. I'm still working on getting paid from last winter for a local property manager who you would consider the general contractor, and I worked as a subcontractor. I'm still owed $30,000.
Wow.
It's coming in the form of payments, but again, I followed everything by the scope of work, and that was kind of the argument I had. Where off the bat, I had written up, we followed down to the T what was in the scope of work. So.
Right, I agree with you. I think putting it into a scope of work that works out good. And knowing exactly what needs to be done, like you said, when you're at a job site like that, I think that works out the best way. JC, have you ever been a subcontractor? I know you're going to be a subcontractor for Josh this winter, right?
He already has a honey-do list for me ready.
Oh, yeah.
No, but I think the closest to that I've gotten, I've had to work on maybe like two or three occasions. I had to work with another company that was coming in and installing plants and mulch, delivering mulch, having mulch installed, having plants installed on a property that I was working on. And the reason for it was because they were having like family over the next day and they wanted the property already. So it was kind of weird because I had to coordinate with this other company through the customer and, to work around what time they're going to be coming in and what time I'm going to be coming in. And then, so that's happened a few times. Was never to an extent where, it got crazy or hectic, or I had to network with them or anything like that. But yeah, it was a big house. I think, it was kind of weird because a delivery of baby oil came in, and I'm kidding. I'm referencing a comment there.
Oh yeah, it's very brutal. Okay, so
I took his attention. The guy took your attention away, huh?
Yeah, it took my attention away about this whole thing. Yeah, I love people commenting on stuff when we're doing the lives.
It's on fire tonight. I'm
Oh
enjoying it.
yeah, today. It's always it's on fire. Right? I tell you that much. I mean,
It's the evenings, everybody's awake on a Sunday evening.
Mhm.
It's on fire. It's on fire like P-Guy's mom's box.
Yeah. Oh, but I think that it's very fun. I guess so. So going into the future, is there any accounts that you would want to take over if you could, Josh, JC?
Can I go like extreme on this one?
Yeah, go for extreme. Go for it.
The White House lawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
I've gone to DC a few times, and I think this is still a fact. I believe they use grasshopper mowers.
Ooh.
Specifically, at least they did a few years
Did
back.
they get a sponsorship? Did they get a sponsorship through Grasshopper?
I don't know, but I was big on like following grasshopper mowers and stuff, and they're like the official lawn mowers for the White House. But just being able to stripe that lawn, just how big it is and how straight it is, like that's always something that I've always wanted to. I dreamed of doing. I'll never be able to do it. But
Yeah.
doing it.
Josh, anything that you would dream of taking over a client or
Fenway Park.
Shout out to David, whatever his name is, that does that. I would love to volunteer to just learn at Fenway Park is what they do, because it's a science over there, man. That's crazy. But yeah, I there's a lot that I want. There's a lot, and there's a lot that I'm going to go after and try to bid on, and we'll see what happens. You know, I got a lot inside the city of Boston that I want to go after. You know, I'd love to be, you know, if I could do the Boston Gardens, you know, all landscaping there around like where the swan boats are, that'd be cool. You know, so there's a lot around the city that I'd like to take over, and you know, I have plans for next year, so we'll see.
Go big or go home, they say. So that'd be awesome. Brandon the Booker says send you to Washington, JC. So we're gonna send you.
I know Brandon. What's up, Brandon? What's going on, bro?
What's up, buddy? So
good dude.
Yes, he is. So I think yeah. For me, dude, there's so many places I've seen. I'd love to go, just put my hands out into some of the plants, or yeah, like my wife's saying, like Notre Dame. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, so I would love to just go out on campus and just go to town on changing out beds and, you know, putting in new plants and trimming everything. So I think that would be awesome. So
Scott, is Rudy your favorite movie?
No, it isn't. It really isn't. But I have watched it a lot of times. I think the last time I watched it, I actually sat through the whole thing, because usually I'll sit through and watch part of it and then either fast forward it or stop it and then come back and, you know, go forward or whatever. So, I mean, there's a lot of times that, you know, I've seen it, but I've never really seen it all the way through till the last time I watched it. So I think it points out a lot of things that, you know, makes sense when you go to the stadium. So it's very uplifting. So yeah. But yeah, I think there's a lot of places, like I said, I'd love to get my hands on landscape wise and be able to get into and do for the, you know, for future wise. I'd rather do the traveling instead of sitting in one place. And I know my wife would be like, why are we traveling so much? But, you know, she'd probably be sitting here. But
you know what would be cool is if you could just, instead of having 25, 100, 50 customers, you have that one customer that just is 100% your income. And you just do that work on that property the whole entire. Would that be boring, or would it be so big that you wouldn't have a chance to be big?
I think if it was a client, like we have one client that runs a bunch of restaurants all over the United States. And I think if I was the one that was in charge of going around from restaurant to restaurant, changing out stuff and you know, redoing the landscaping, I tell you what, I probably would do it. I really would, because I think that would be interesting to go to another state or to another city and say, okay, what do we have here that we got to change out? Because I know every area is different. Every, you know, you're in North America or lower North America, you're going to have different plants. You're going to have different, seasons that you're going to have to plant in. So it'd be a little bit different to be able to go and see and say, okay, what do I put over here? Because, I might plant a lot more daylilies and Rebecchias and all kinds of stuff up here. But when I go down there, I might be something different. I might do more palm trees or something. You never know. So I think that would be the interesting thing to be able to go down there, research what needed to be put in and put in there to make it look beautiful for the client. So
What if it was just like one property, like the White House?
I think I would be interested. I'd be interested in doing it if I was there all the time. Depends on what the pay is, I guess. If they're only going to pay me, peanuts, I don't know if that would work out, but
I think there's a lot of work there.
Yeah.
Every season you're changing out the flowers, you're changing out the landscape, you're doing everything.
It would take a couple people, yeah. But I think you would be very busy. I'll tell you that much. I think Josh would too. I think he would be the one that would I think if he was in charge of Fenway, I think he would just have a ball with it and just run with it sometimes.
If I could keep my same lifestyle and do that, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Brightstone says he would love to do the PGA in Augusta.
Oh,
Augusta, Georgia would be awesome, I guess. PGA course down there would be awesome. All right. So anything else you guys want to jump on real quick before we end? We got 10 more minutes before the end of the thing.
I'm doing great on fantasy football. Undefeated.
What did you do today?
I did
Still
great.
going good? You got how many points you got so far for the day?
I'm at a 99% chance of winning my matchup this week. So
that's pretty good.
85 points. Yep.
85 points?
Yep.
What's
97.85?
97. That's not bad. I got 117 points out of 75 right now.
I got James Cook running back for the Buffalo Bills playing now.
I got Harrison Jr., and he didn't do me good today. So let's just say that.
Very happy with my performance this week.
Yeah, that's good. Mine's not doing good. I'm only going to win 29%. So I think I'm going to lose this week. So it kind of sucks, but who knows?
Josh, I see that Celtics jersey underneath there. You getting ready for the next season?
I am. I'm pumped. I'm ready.
You're going to wear that all the way till they come back?
Yep. I got my hats. Someone in here mentioned something about the Minnesota Vikings going 4-0. I think the Pats, they finished and they lost by like 17 points. Actually, they lost by like 26 points tonight.
Right.
1-3. So the Vikings being 4-0, it must be late 90s again, early 2000s.
Yeah, you never know, right? That's where you're from. So I know you'll love it if Minnesota goes all the way, right?
I'm not from Minnesota.
You're a Midwestern.
Fucking Missouri, dude. I was born there. I'm not Midwestern. Fuck. I don't fucking play with cows and fucking cousins and shit, dude. And cornfields.
Nobody plays with cows on here. I don't know why you come up with that stuff.
Josh, people not playing with cousins, second cousins.
Yeah,
we
don't either there. That's down south, I think. I don't know.
Hey, he plays with cows and cousins, or cousins that are cows.
In the cornfields.
Cousin sets of cows in the cornfield. That's a whole nother story and a whole nother show. I'll tell you that.
Oh, so there is a story behind that. Jesus.
That's the Jerry show. Okay.
Scott, have you ever been cow tipping?
No. I didn't grow up in the country. I know I live out in the country just outside the city right now, but I've never grown up in the country. I always lived down pretty much the first like 10 years of my life was in a really hard part of the town right now. I mean, if you go there, if you're white, you're not in a good area. So I'll tell you that much.
Josh has never been cow tipping, but he's been cow hunting in Saugus at the bars.
The bars, yeah. It's pig hunting, but you Scott, you got to realize, like in the Northeast, or maybe just like in Massachusetts, like when you say you live in a country, or you live in the country, in the city, we picture like Western movies of like a dirt road with like wooden porches going down. Like there's no such thing as
We don't have dirt roads out here, okay?
like Wisconsin or Minnesota.
We have paved roads, okay, out here. I mean,
I would hope so by now.
we pave them. I mean, yeah. I mean, we have roundabouts. There's like one roundabout in the whole county out here, but
Roundabout.
but I mean,
You know what we call roundabouts up here? Rotaries.
Rotaries.
Yeah.
Do you stop and dial when you get around?
Close your eyes and you just hit the gas.
Yeah. If you ever come up here, Jensen knows the rotary by my house. That's the perfect example. People just go in a fucking straight line across it. They don't actually go around
Oh my
it.
gosh. Yeah. Ours aren't like that. Usually people go around them in a circle, but I hate that when you get up to some of them around here, because there is some, if you go closer to where a lot of our work is, there's like 3 of them in a row, and you're like one of them, everybody doesn't even slow down. They just keep going. If you get in there at the right time, they just keep going. So you're like, okay, I got to squeeze in here with a truck and a trailer to get through this area. Come on. That's the fun part. What? Okay. So anyways, but yeah, I've never been cow tipping. I'll tell you that much, JC. Have you been cow tipping? Let's ask you that question.
No, there's no. I mean, where I live now, there's cows, but.
Oh, so you got cows by you?
Yeah.
Wow,
I'm kind of
that's interesting.
Countryside-ish, if you want to consider it that, but
Countryside-ish.
But compared to your countryside, I live in the city pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah. I mean, there is horses across the street, and there's pigs
We have
down
cornfields.
the road.
Josh has been through my neighborhood. He knows the cornfields out there.
Listen, Jensen's kind of country, man. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
He's on the outskirts. He grew up in the hood, but he's a fucking country boy now, dude.
He got all that good money from cutting grass and moved out. That's what it is.
If he did, cutting the right grass. He's probably
Selling
selling.
it too. Yeah. Oh, all right. So I think we've had a great talk tonight, guys. It was fun being on. Hopefully you got some good information out of here. If you got any bad stories, send them our way. We'd love to hear your bad stories about your bad customers. But it's always good to have these guys on, and we're always here usually every week. So I want to thank everybody for being on, and thanks Cujo for sponsoring the show. And we'll be back next week, guys. We'll have another great topic. I can't tell you. I don't even tell these guys till like usually a couple hours before, if I do tell them. So I don't want them to get a head start on me thinking about what it is, because Josh will just start thinking and he'll write everything down, and then he'll throw the paper away. So I don't want him to do that. So that's why I don't tell him till like